So you might ask that if there is this, hard problem of consciousness, maybe it's the end of the consciousness research, and there may be no point in doing this type of the research. All right, but I don't think that's the case, and that's why I'm doing this lecture in the first place. And any promising theoretical approaches are there? That's the question. So one of the most interesting theoretical ideas that I will be featuring for the end of this lecture series, especially week 10, 11, and 12, is to reverse the direction of the explanation. And that's proposed by this integrated information theory by Tononi. Instead of going from, okay, here's the external world, and then that's processed in the brain, and then somehow that part of the brain or population of brain give rise to conscious experience. First, characterize conscious experience of the dog. Okay, and then to experience such a thing like a dog, then we should have this and this type of physical mechanism that has to support this experience. This reversal of the direction of the arrow is what the integrated information theory is going to propose. And I'm going to go into the details in week 10, 11, and 12. Okay. And I think this is a much more promising kind of approach that in general to get to the bottom of the consciousness. And there are lots of things that we can do in terms of experiment theory and so phenomenological approach. All right. So in this, familiar now familiar metaphor of consciousness research, integrated information theory is, in a sense, reversing the arrow or coming to the top of the, mountain directly through a kind of a helicopter from the, up above the, sky. And then try to reverse the explanation of the arrows. And then, but still, because we are targeting to get to the same place, from bottom and the top, it should support each other and then, in a sense, triangulate from the above as well. That's the general approach I will advocate here. So one of this major history of the consciousness research is around 2004 or 5. Giulio Tononi has proposed integrated information theory of consciousness. That's, I would say, major happenings, major events in the history of consciousness. So, but there are lots of other theories, and I wouldn't say that the integrated information theory is the only theory or is the correct theory. I'll be neutral, especially in this lecture series. But since 1990s, because of the empirical progress in the neuroscience and of consciousness, there are lots of data available. And then this loads of experimental data is impossible to sort of classify or understand without any theory. So to explain all these findings, there are many theories proposed in the field, and we will review some of them in the lectures. And the role of the theory in consciousness study, and also the same for other type of the fields as well, is to first of all to explain and understand what's known as a sort of empirical data, right? So you need some kind of core kind of simplistic framework to explain all what we know through that experimentation and phenomenology. But also theory is not useful until it starts to make some kind of counterintuitive predictions and to motivate further experiments. And then finally also infer the things that are impossible to perform directly in terms of experiment. So one example in the case of the physics is, for example, quantum mechanics or special relativity by Einstein and so on. These are first starting to explain what's impossible to understand with the classical physics, right? That from Newtonian kind of force and so on. But they do make some kind of counterintuitive predictions, and then such as Bell's inequality violation in the quantum mechanics, or a black hole, or something like that in the special relativity. And then it may take a really long time, but once somebody makes a huge and also counterintuitive predictions, then there are always some other generation, later generation, who are genius or spent a lot of time to build a method or come up with a nice idea to test it. And then finally, science as a sort of whole of the human kind of activity arrives at the decisive evidence to support one or the other. And that's the sort of the role of the theory. And as I said, we'll make a deep dive into several theories of consciousness with this spirit. Right now, it's probably very difficult to decide A or B, but maybe we can already do something with that, with the currently existing theories.